Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Bryant. We are here at Page One Power headquarters in beautiful Boise, Idaho, and we are going to talk a little bit about writing and specifically how link builders write for the web. That is me, Mike Bryant, and this is my first time doing this, so please go easy on me in the comments and questions. Feel free to submit a question anytime during the broadcast. You can see that on the question tab on your right-hand side of your screen. Here is our presenter, Colin Eggleston. Say hello, Colin.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon.
He's the director of training here at Page One Power. He is the expert of the experts, and he gets them on the right track when they're beginning their world in link building. We also have today featuring a Colby stream. He'll be adding some commentary on Colin's presentation and giving some great examples to what we do here on the production floor and specific examples of what kind of writing we do to get some fantastic links, high quality links for our clients. Say hello, Colby.
Hey everybody, happy to have you along today.
And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Colin and enjoy the show, everyone.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. I do appreciate it. So I wanted to give a quick kind of shout out today to Corey Collins as well, because this presentation is actually largely based off of his work that he actually did an article kind of along these lines. And so what I did is this is kind of based on our internal training that we use for our link builders, and we kind of modified it to make it a little bit more presentable for, kind of outwardly presentable. So yeah, that's what this presentation is kind of based on, built on his framework. And so check out Corey Collins. He's he's our managing editor for the Linkarati Page One Power blog. And his work is all over, from Linkarati to Search Engine Journal, everywhere. So yeah, that's just want to give a quick shout out there. So when we're talking about writing content for the web, there's a lot of ways to kind of approach that, and there's it's it's basically answering the question, how do I write pretty, right? How do I write pretty words that people like? And so that's kind of the age-old question that really people have been tackling since time immemorial. But for the sake of brevity and being able to actually encapsulate it into a lesson format, what we've done is we've found 6 pillars of good writing for the web and good web content, and how to kind of put your writing into this process and kind of run it through this rubric. So the first 2 here I have up on the board right now is one is make it pertinent. Make your writing pertinent, and that's kind of one thing that's easy to say, but is a little bit harder to execute. But we're going to talk on that. We want you to include useful information. So we encourage our staff, we encourage our content writers to not only be able to speak and write correctly and write well, but also to actually have actionable, useful information. We'll talk more on that. Make it engaging. Make it something that people enjoy reading and maybe enjoy sharing, enjoy talking about or arguing about, kind of interrogating. And then finally kind of spark discussion, kind of take that engagement to another format and to another medium. The 5th pillar is keep it readable. And there's a lot of things to kind of unpack there, and then finally the appropriate length as well, because really we in this day and age, it's if you don't lock someone in for lock them in quickly and then kind of give them what they need, and then so that they can bounce out quickly, we can't have 2,000, 5,000, 6,000 words for every article. It's just not going to work, even though it could be very good content for those 5,000 words. So we'll address that at the end. So the first one, making it pertinent. So I have a couple examples up here and talking about informative and relevance. But I wanted to kind of loop Colby in and kind of talk about his experiences with kind of making it pertinent, because my number one kind of strategy behind this is being aware, having an awareness of not just pop culture and just kind of what is happening at the culture at large, but having an awareness of your client's niche and a keen awareness of their market and the ecosystems that they live in. And I'll pass on over to Colby to kind of speak on this.
Colin, you're right that it's so important for our link builders, when they go out to write content, that they understand the niche and they know what is relevant to that. Equally as important, that a lot of people don't think about first, and so we coach on it a lot here in-house, is that your content, you need to find the intersect that makes your client's niche pertinent with the audience who is going to read it. So if I'm going for to write a blog on someone else's site, I can't just write something that's pertinent to my client. It has to be pertinent to that audience as well. I think Buffer, they provide the Buffer app. It's a social media app. They do a really good job of this. You'll notice that a lot of their content is social media related, but they loop in a lot of other topics as well. Most recently, I saw them publish something on podcasting tools and like stock photos. And these are things that are not inherently social media related, but they are social media related. And people who are reading about social media are interested in these other topics. You'll also see Buffer write about productivity, things that just people who are reading about social media are also interested in. So when we're talking about being pertinent, yes, we're talking about knowing the niche, but also talking about the intersect and what makes the audience interested in that niche and topics related to that niche.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's a lot of ways that you can really, kind of, if I'm a link builder and I have a client that's in if I'm writing content, right? If I'm a content writer and I need to provide content out on the web for my client and kind of spread the word, or even just kind of interact with those communities, there's good ways that I can kind of find what is pertinent and what is relevant in that niche. So the first place, kind of an actionable piece of advice is I like to search Twitter for keywords or key phrases related to my client's industry. Like if my example I love to use is dog beds, dog beds or dog grooming, then I'm going to be searching Twitter for trending topics or popular topics where discussions that are people talking about dog beds or pets or in that kind of adjacent to that. So I can see what is in the zeitgeist right now. Twitter is very good, or even just if you look at Google News and set up a Google News alert for your client's industry and for some of their keywords, making it pertinent, making it timely. If you are up on the kind of the current events within that field, by using those tools, then that's a really good way to kind of help that. So let's just move on. We definitely have a lot to cover. So the question that I thought of, is it possible to make content relevant, for every niche? What do you think, Colby?
I think it's absolutely possible. And the approach that you've already said, to take it from where you're starting with, what's happening pop culture, looking at Twitter, is how you do that. You think of stuff that people might never think about. Pluto is a big topic right now. Maybe a month ago you couldn't have written about that, but I bet you could if you knew what was coming and you were paying attention. So certainly some niches are more technical than others, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, you can write content for any niche that is relevant because that niche exists because there's an audience.
I agree as well. There's people buying the products. There's a market there, and there's that industry supporting it, and then there's all the people that are adjacent to that industry. So I think with maybe one or two exceptions, I think that you can make it relevant for every niche, or even just 100% every niche with some creativity thrown in there. The other pillar, useful information, right? So this pillar kind of springboards into other, the other ones as well, as far as like engagement and shareable and discussion, because useful information is kind of the cornerstone of someone's interest. The other part of that cornerstone is making it relevant and making it timely, but making it useful actionable information. So if I'm, yeah, I can probably get a link in a I can probably write a piece of content that's like the top 10 angriest, angriest fish of 2015. And okay, that's an article, and it may be interesting, and it may be well written, but is there useful information in that? I would hazard a guess and say no, there probably isn't a lot of useful information. But an example of good useful information is writing an article. Maybe it's an opinion piece, about something, but within that you can embed actionable, like an actionable guide. Like one that I saw in an interesting niche recently was someone was writing a review of tires, of tires, and of a new brand of tires. And in the review, they also added a little paragraph, a bulleted paragraph about, hey, how do you check and see if your tire is too worn and if it's no longer safe, and what you should be looking for? What are the signs you should be looking for? Really great actionable information embedded within the article. And Colby, again, I'll pass it over to you to kind of speak on that as well in your experience.
The trick with useful information is that you have to be aware of two dangers. The first danger is overgeneralizing, and the second danger is being too technical. So we have quite a few clients in what you might call, soft or non-technical niches, and we might be tempted to go out and write something like protect your dog from ticks. Well, duh. You can't just say that. You have to be actionable, like you said. Say, here's how you protect your dog from ticks. On the other end of the scale, for technical industries, it can be tempting to use jargon and get very technical. You think about Pluto right now. If you're writing on Pluto and you're an expert in that niche, you have what's called the curse of knowledge. You're going to write a bunch of stuff that people don't understand. You have to be attuned to making that information more accessible and more actionable for people who don't understand that. So, it might be specific, but it won't be useful unless you make it that way.
Absolutely, I love that phrase. I'm gonna have to creatively borrow that for another presentation. And that's exactly right, because you got to kind of ride that edge between too much information and something that's a good nugget that's actionable. So why useful information? There's a couple points here too that I want to go over. Sharing is kind of one that we touched on, and that's the other thing too. Is like make your content, make your site, make your brand, make your if you're an author, if you're an independent blogger, and people see you around the web, turn your site into a watering hole, where people can continue. They know that there's good source of water there, and they'll continue again and again. And that, that's so much better than getting one viral piece. And yeah, great, you're the Gangnam Style of 2015. You got 1 million hits, and that's fun. But what's your next act? What's your follow up? Why are people gonna even come back to you? So definitely have them return it again and again, and that's why you include useful information and building reputation as well. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that as well, Colby.
No, I think you nailed it.
All right, very good, very good. So a quick pro tip here for any bloggers or kind of anyone that is sharing your content out there. Once your post goes live, hit it out on social media very, very soon after it does, or immediately after it does. Blog owners really like this because they get a little social media bump in traffic, traffic from your social media possibly. And maybe if you're like myself, maybe like my mom going and checking out the site or something like that. So that's kind of a quick pro tip that I tell to our new writers. So talking about engaging, so what is it? I think the first thing that we need to kind of interrogate here is, what does engaging mean? What does engaging mean, and and kind of where can that take us? One of the things that makes things engaging is a relatable tone. Is something that's relatable. The tone itself is relatable. It's not too academic and dry, and personalizing things, making something relatable, I think is another way to call it engaging. And Southwest, and I'll let you jump in here in a second, Colby. I want to just show a quick example of Southwest blog, which I think they do a really great example of engaging, because yeah, they're an airline, and yeah, they probably they cover a lot of technical stuff and industry news, but they just have this fun sense of we love our employees, we love our client, we love our passengers, and here's some cool stuff that you can relate to. So Colby, what are your thoughts on that?
I find that one of the easiest ways to make a piece engaging is to just answer the reader's questions that they may not know they have, or that they do have, and answer them very succinctly and quickly. So as an example, we can take a topic that's not terribly engaging. Air conditioners. This is a real thing. I did this a couple weeks back, and you jump into it and you're like, how can you make this engaging? Well, when you start doing research, what you find out is it's just muddled. There are different names for different types of air conditioners, and if people are trying to find out what air conditioner do I need, it's just not clear. I had to cite 6 or 7 different articles. And so to make it engaging, I took one of your tips here and crafted a story around it, and made it sort of a struggle type of narrative. Let me clear that up for you. And then I walked the reader through, here are the things you need to know. And I combine that with a few other elements we'll get to, making it readable and that sort of thing. But you just have to speak directly to the reader. And sometimes that seems very hard to do. And my fallback is to say, okay, what are people's struggles going to be? Why do they want to read this? What questions do they need answered? Let me address those directly and just walk them through what they'll need to know.
Very great. Yeah, I could not agree more. And kind of, it's one of the, kind of to pivot to like the sports narrative, or kind of the sports question is like, you could sit there and watch a game with the sound off, and you're watching these actions play out without any context. But I think when sports get most engaged, when I'm most engaged in that game or in that fight or anything like that, is when I know the context and I know the narrative of the two teams and the personal history, the personal stories. So good, from link building to Gangnam Style to sports. So here we go. So keep it conversational, write in a conversational manner, which is helpful as well for a quick tip. Quick discussion. What are some factors that make content engaging? Why is being engaging important? I think we kind of covered those a little bit. Do you have anything you want to piggyback on there, Colby?
No, I do want to impress, because we get a lot of these in-house, that conversational tone. It has to be conversational. If it's not, it's the web. If it's not conversational, a lot of people will view it as dry, and you might have very useful information. You might answer their questions, but they may not read it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Pro tip, another quick one that I like to give to my trainees is I encourage, if you're writing on someone else's site, is to link to another page or another blog post or like the FAQ on that person's site. That internal linking really helps out as well, and it's kind of a nice little way to get some brownie points. So sparking discussion. This is kind of a great area because this is probably one of the most I don't know, in a way, kind of the amorphous kind of things that you want to add into your content, because I'm reminded of the big executive, the boardroom where it's like, how do we make this viral? Let's put a team on it and make some viral content, and it always, maybe like Super Bowl commercials or something like that, and it just always is just fails so hard to like try to make it when you really kind of search out and try to make it quote unquote viral or quote unquote hitting on a nerve or that's super shareable, it just can sputter out and fail really quickly. So this is difficult. This is a very high degree of difficulty in kind of sparking discussion in a purposeful way, in a meaningful way. But I think that if you have the other pillars here, this is the 4th pillar, if you have the other 3 pillars holding up your content, this 4th pillar can come kind of naturally and organically from the environment in which you are posting, and the environment in which your content lives, and then what you have to say. And if you are meaningfully adding to the discussion, and maybe in a controversial way, you have a controverting opinion, then that's a good way to get it shared. But I can't make any guarantees as to something that's going to be necessarily, shared every time, 100% of the time. What do you think, Colby?
People talk about what they care about. And so part of sparking a discussion is having your ear to the ground about what people do care about. So a very good example of something that just happened a few days ago in-house is we had a guy who was paying attention, and when CrossFit tweeted out a very in this instance, controversial tweet. You might have seen it. It's got the Coca-Cola on it, and it's I can't remember the exact quote, but you can go see it. He saw that as an opportunity, as an intersecting opportunity to write a post about good PR, how they could have, first of all, avoided that, and once it went live, how they could have avoided all the bad publicity that came from it, how they could have turned it around. And people care about that a lot. They care about CrossFit. They care about what happens on Twitter. They care about good PR. And he wrote a very good piece that people, I mean, it's just got a ton of comments at the bottom. So when you're thinking about, oh, I want to spark a discussion, don't just look, now this is controversial, that one was, but don't just look for controversial, look for what people care about. We encounter the same thing in the pet niche when we write about pets on a very pet-centric site. People love their pets. You get people in there, you ask them to add their 2 cents about something they care about, they will engage in the discussion.
Very good. And speaking of discussion, we're pressed a little bit for time, so I'm going to move on. Looking at these questions, what are some ways we can spark a discourse? Should it be shocking and provoking? And I really, just to kind of comment on that, should it be shocking and provoking? Because I know that some people want to gravitate toward that, but that could be very dangerous because that could also hurt a brand as well. Yeah, you might get the shares, you might get the traffic, but the long-term investment in the brand, it could hurt it as well to be associated with something shocking and provoking. But you can make something kind of shocking in like a funny or clever way, and that doesn't have to hurt someone's feelings or be too out there. The other thing too, this is a good pro tip, is that when you get your content published on the web, I love to, and this is actually taken from Mueller from Google, and he posted out, said that he is the first comment on his articles when he posts on other people's sites, and he engages the discussion, says, hey, you know what, I'm going to be watching this comment section, and thanks for reading my article, and I'll get back to any of your comments or questions. So that's a really good way to kind of help. Again, that's a good way to kind of spark discussion as well. Readable. So readability, this one is a tough, kind of a tough balancing act, but avoid walls of text. Split paragraphs up with bullets, lists, graphs, and images, kind of like my example with the Southwest blog. And make sure that preview your work or give it to a friend or give it to a coworker and have them kind of scan it and have them give you feedback. So Colby, I'll pass it to you.
I tell my writers that when they're done writing, stand back and view your article as a product and ask yourself, how does this product present itself? Does it present itself professionally, or is it just a bunch of words on the page? And then we have a bunch of tools, some of which we've touched on how to make it a better product. Things like bullet points, bold and italics, images. Ultimately, we want to give people the ability to scan, and we want to give them multiple entry points. The entry point should not just be the headline and the first sentence. There should be a lot of entry points, headers, images, quote callouts, things like that. And that also makes your article appear more professional. Appearance is really important here.
Very good, very good. And I recommend this as another shout out to, and I have no association with this website, but I recommend the HemingwayApp.com. And you can put your content into this online app, and it'll actually help you out with length and readability and brevity as well. So kind of a quick discussion looking at these points. I think we kind of covered them as well, but examples of readable content, what makes it readable, avoiding the dreaded, the teal deer, too long to not read, as some people on the internet may be familiar with, because you might just have somebody, the first comment is, too long, didn't read, thank you, which has happened to me, absolutely. So definitely work to kind of avoid that. Headlines are a really good way to kind of, that's an important piece of the content as well, because a lot of times if you're sharing the piece of content, that's probably the preview part of what somebody's going to see first, and it kind of is their entry point into the article, and then opening lines as well. Opening lines, not to put too much pressure on writers, but opening lines can sometimes make or break a piece, and can rope somebody in or scare them off right away within the first line. I don't know, Colby, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Nothing outside of don't stop there, right? Make sure you
Right.
have as many entry points as possible. Certainly, these are the first things people see, but
Yeah.
don't stop there.
I believe that. I believe in that. And then finally, kind of a pro tip as well is that yes, your primary function, your focus is writing content and creating good content, but we also have to make sure that the title tags, URL structure, and the header tags, that those things are in order as well, both for your sake, if it's on your own website, or if you are creating content for someone else. You don't want to have to make the webmaster, or the editor go through and SEO your piece first. You want to help them out with that as well. And then finally, the last pillar that we're going to be talking about today is the appropriate length. And of course, I say that as we're going along today, so this is great. So with a blog post, it should be as long as it needs to be, right? Once you kind of prove your thesis and you deliver your thesis, you back it up with good data, actionable data, and kind of empirical proof, and maybe links supporting your thought. Then you're done. Your work here is done, and don't stay in too long, right? So that's kind of the way to go with that. Colby, what are some examples that you can kind of give to us for that?
Well, I'll give you an example in a second, but let me say that my rule is your reader should not have to go elsewhere to answer a reasonable question. So the example for this is we go back to air conditioning, right? People should not have to go somewhere else to find out what a BTU is, which is a British thermal unit, and what kind of BTU I need for my square footage. That needs to be in your article if someone is buying an air conditioner. Similarly, I had to include the different, air conditioners are in different major groups. I needed to include that. So you just need to step back and say, what reasonable question will the reader ask that I need to answer for them? And then beyond that, you just need to write as concisely as possible. No fluff. Take out the fluff. We're not talking about that, but it may go long because the reader just needs, they need an answer, and you don't want to send a reader to 6 different places to learn something. Just include that stuff in your article. And then if they want to go deeper, much deeper outside of the scope of your article, you can link them there, obviously. But answer any reasonable question, and it should be as long as it needs to be.
What I love too is kind of the art of perfecting. Maybe your piece doesn't cover every conceivable question, but as long as you kind of follow Colby's advice and think of the reasonable questions that someone might ask. And what I love seeing is that a piece that compels people they want to know more, they'll ask you, they'll comment to you, they'll tweet at you, they'll email you, and then you've got this great discussion going and somebody that actually wants to know more and wants to learn more. So you don't necessarily have to have it all there. You don't have to, every piece doesn't have to be an encyclopedia level of information. So great. So that's our 6 pillars. And we want to, there's kind of a last discussion piece. Anything else you're keeping in mind when writing content for the web? So after we're encompassing the 6 pillars, any thoughts there that we didn't kind of cover or traverse?
These are the basics. Certainly, as you grow in your ability to do this, there are ways to break the rules and other things you can do. But these are the basics, and you need to follow these every time when you're just getting started.
Excellent. And then there's the kind of the recap there. Mike, I'll pass it to you for a second here, just so we can kind of, I think we're going to take some questions here, so we can kind of get those going.
Yep, here we go. We do have a couple questions that are already there. We do also want to send out a poll question before we get to the Q&A, and we'll launch that here. And this poll question is about Page One Power's link building training program. And that should be up on your screen now. We'll wait till that gets about 75% and then get to some questions. So we have some expert staff that is, if you're not looking to purchase link building services for your company, you can go through this link building training program for a little bit smaller investment and and this is things and resources and information and knowledge that we practice every day here at Page One Power, and it's valuable tools that you're going to be able to put into action, and either for your own company or for your own clients. We'll wait just a little bit longer and we'll close that poll and get to our first question. Remember, the question tab is on the right hand side of your toolbar. Feel free to submit anything, specific examples, anything that you're currently working on, or challenges that you might be encountering. All right, so Steve Heron, he submitted the question, limit the content by, and let's see.
Yeah, looks like content about question about a previous
Limit
slide.
content by and not words.
Let's see. Do I have slide control here? So yeah, kind of looking at that one. If that's what we're thinking out. If that's the right one. So kind of addressing that, limiting your content. Yeah, you have to kind of divorce yourself from the idea that I only want to write a certain number of words for this article or for this content to make it the appropriate length. That's not a good guide necessarily for the appropriate length. A good measurement for the appropriate length is, did I get everything? Did I accomplish my thesis? Did I answer the questions that might be kind of brought up by this piece? And so those are separate questions. Those are separate things to think about besides just word length as well. Because honestly, like I'll one of my like if I'm looking at like blind 5-year-olds, that blog. Oftentimes his blog posts are 2,000 words long, 3,000 words long. He doesn't care, but I devour those, and it feels like it just takes 2 seconds to read through it all because he keeps it interesting and actionable, and he answers all my questions in the content. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Colby, if you wanted to.
Maybe Colby can help us answer this next question. This is coming from Muris Johnson. It says, I appreciate what you've shared as it relates to content, but when it comes to finding websites, blogs that are interested in us providing content, where do we find them?
You can go to 2 places, and we use both of these. The number one place is we use Google a lot. You can go to Google and whatever topic you're intending to write on and do a search. Sometimes we'll include in our search, in quotes, contribute or write for us. People have pages related to those, but not always and not necessarily. A lot of people will accept content, but they're not publicizing that. And so we'll go to their site, find out who the editor, who the touch point is, and email them, hey, I have this article idea. The other is that as we get involved in the niche, people start, responding to us and putting discussion on our articles, is we'll look down in those comments and say, who has seen us? Who's discussing this with us? Can we reach out to them? Do they have a site that we can get published on with them as well? And so ultimately, we'll start with Google to kind of get our way in, but we want to get to a place where we're creating connections, we're building relationships, and when we reach out to someone, we can say, hey, you commented on my article over here, can I write on your site as well?
Great answer, Colby. Thank you for chiming in on that, and appreciate Muris Johnson for submitting that question. Next one is from Sean Vandenberg. He says, do you write with keywords in mind, or do you just more or less write for your audience to answer questions, and then on-page SEO works itself out naturally?
That's a good question. That's another kind of tough one to kind of to kind of really keep in a balance, because you don't really want to necessarily have the piece be keyword forward or keyword centric, and I got to hit all these keywords or else my rankings are going to be not very good. But what I like to do is to kind of, with with the topic, sometimes the keywords kind of come naturally. I don't have a checklist in mind whenever I encourage my writers or my trainees to to write content, but I do say that there should be some focus in this area around those keywords, but there's never really a hard and fast list of words that we use. So really yes and no. So you're welcome for that. I don't know, Colby, what's your take on that as well?
You hit that right. The answer is no, we're not. I'm going to put this keyword in here so many times, but we are paying attention to, because we're doing link building, what resource am I going to link to on my client site? And to some extent, we're building our article around that resource we're linking to so that it makes sense. And in that sense, there are going to be inherent, keyword signals involved in that article. But in a lot of cases, it's going to work itself out naturally and semantically.
Absolutely. Did you want to move?
Yeah, last and final question comes from Barb Rose. She's just looking for simple steps to get your content shared or posted to outside sites and how to get that started.
Oh, I love it. That's a great one that we see a lot internally as well as we're training new hires and kind of getting that ball rolling. So to get your content shared on outside sites, there's 2 ways that I recommend. Actually 3 ways. Let's just do these quick three points. Social media. Share out your content on your own social media streams as much as possible. Get people used to that and get people used to going back to your blog or your areas of content publications often. And then encourage those blog owners to share out your article on their social media streams so that you get that overlap. The second way that I recommend is honestly outreach. Is if you have a really great piece of content on your personal site's blog, on your business's blog or your personal blog, if you have a good piece of content, find a couple blogs that are kind of, or maybe blogs that are kind of in your marketing circles or whatnot, in your niche, and just say, hey, you know what, I'm writing some good content here, and I just want to share this with you, and see if you'd be interested in maybe either featuring it or linking to it, or just start a discussion. Don't even really start with that. And then I forgot the third one, so I'll go to Colby.
I guess the only thing that's really missing there, Colin, is that you have to write content that's worthy of being shared.
That's good. Yeah.
And sometimes that also includes mentioning an influencer who you can reach out to, as you said, and say, hey, you're mentioned here, your company's mentioned here, maybe you want to share it. But you have to write great content at the same time. Like you said, you can't expect people to just pick that up. You do have to outreach. You do need to do some legwork in pushing it.
Yeah, I remember my third piece now is the third part of that is that in my content, if I know that I have great content on my site, then I will actually include a link in that content to maybe another blog or another place, and maybe they'll see those link signals coming from my site, and then that'll kind of pop me up on their radar as well. That's a little bit of a slower play, kind of a longer play, but it helps you kind of interconnect literally and figuratively with those different sites in your field. And a lot of sites, will definitely see those link signals coming from you, and kind of investigate that.
Well, gentlemen, we have run out of time. We do have a couple more questions that we didn't have time to get to, and these will be personally answered by either Colin or Colby after the program, and we'll get those answers sent over to you later today. But I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that attended today. We appreciate your time. Just a heads up, go over to digitalmarketingdepot.com. Right on the top of the page, you'll see the registration link for the webinar that our people are going to be doing next week. So digitalmarketingdepot.com, register for next week's webinar. We'll hope to see you guys there. And thanks again for coming out. It is time for lunch in Boise, Idaho, and we will see you guys later.